What is going on, guys? This is Sin, and this is going to be an actual banlist prediction video for once, because I kind of made one like a week and a half or like 2 weeks ago, but it wasn't really a real banlist prediction, but rather like a banlist prediction slash wish list slash kind of like semi-discussion, but this time it's going to be a full discussion and a compilation of 40 cards that can either get banned, limited, semi-limited, or unlimited, even like get out of the ban list because some of these cards are banned, and they only kind of make sense when you got to the full context. So if you skip directly to the end of the video, you're not going to understand jack shit. So yeah, make sure that you follow all the way until the end. And before we proceed, I would really appreciate if you could smash the like and subscribe button. It really motivates me a lot to keep making videos like these. And also huge shout outs to my sponsors, Inspired TCG as well as Dueling. Again, they have their pre-order for their Enchanter of Hearts binder, and it looks absolutely insane. So if you want to get your hands on them, then make sure to pre-order now. Estimated delivery would be in May. Again, use the coupon code YASIN666 for 5% off. And also check out my coaching, because I now coach, which is interesting in case you always wondered. But yeah, anyways, let's get right into it. So the first card is Instant Fusion. It's a card that people wanted banned for a long time. So I don't know if we should actually ban it now or like keep it limited, but I mean, nothing really positive can come out of a Saki 1-of that can summon Millenniumizer Strict or Mud Dragon of the Swamp or Kirlamanskid Kalos if it gets unbanned. So I don't know. Yeah, personally I want to ban it, but if this is a prediction video, I can't really think of anything to ban the card. So I don't know. I think it's gonna stay at 1 for now. 1 for 1, same logic. It's a card that I personally want banned because it's just a really annoying, powerful 1-of, but nothing really warrants it to get banned right now, even though it's being played, it's being abused actually in a lot of decks. The fire decks, and even Voiceless Voice can summon Novox. It's a level 1 monster. So yeah, Appaloosa is a card that I personally want banned, but I think for some reason Konami's just gonna keep their eyes closed on this card. Yeah, so I don't know. Snake Eye Ash, this is really interesting because I've got a lot of Snake Eye monsters. I've got Snake Eye Ash, which might very well get limited. I don't think it's gonna get banned. Or what might happen would be Snake Eyes Oak getting banned, but it would have to be one or the other. Alternatively, Flambridge could also get banned. It can't really get limited because the Fire King version only plays 1 anyways, and after we get Legacy of Destruction, which is the next core set, even Pure Snake Eyes only plays 1 Flambridge Dragon, at least if you look at the OCG. So I actually think this card should dodge the ban list completely because it's either banned or nothing changes. But Snake Eye Oak going to 0 is actually pretty logical because the engine is still somewhat playable, the pure deck is still playable, but it's just gonna be less powerful. So I think like if you really want to hit like power instead of consistency, that's always a good thing, because if you hit consistency, the deck is already very consistent. So not much will change, unless you also choose to like ban 1 for 1, limit wanted, and stuff like that. That could make sense. Alright, next up is Thunder Dragon Colossus, back to 3. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, screw that card. You stay banned. You stay where you are, my friend. I hate you from the bottom of my heart. The thing about Colossus is that if you unban it, then some random decks will start playing the Nemesis Corridor, and they will like start playing like Cupid Pitch and everything. It's gonna be a mess, and then everybody's gonna start summoning Colossus, and if your deck just needs like, obviously, every single engine loses to Colossus almost. I can only think of like a few exceptions that really just don't search, like Orchest, for example. But yeah, no, this is just a nightmare to deal with, and if you have to deal with like a full board and Colossus, it's a problem. But again, in pure Thunder Dragon, it's not really relevant. I mean, if you like limit this card, then you would have to do a lot of things to fix the game, because it's a feasible thing. But again, when Colossus was a 3, the context was also very different. Even though I think this card at 3 was always a problem, but Master Rule 4 was around, so you couldn't really summon like 3 Colossus in the main monster zone right away. So yeah, it was somewhat more fair. You had to like go into Link 2 to give yourself more zones. But now Colossus is kind of like a Link 1 monster that you can summon in the main monster zone. So the card is like drastically better than it always was. So yeah, that's the reason why I'm really not a big fan of this card. Elder Entity Norden is a very interesting one. So we either keep it banned and we keep Instant Fusion, or we do a switch, right? We can do that. This would also be very interesting because if we ban Instant Fusion, then we fix a lot of problems with the game. Like a huge amount of them. And Elder Entity Norden without Instant Fusion is a little more fair. You can only really use it with either Fusion Substitute or Super Poly. The reason why Norden is good as a Super Poly target is that you need either 1 Synchro and 1 Xyz, or 2 Xyz or 2 Synchros to make it. So it's a really good Super Poly target, and it also has a really good effect on summon. You get to revive back any level 4 lower from your grave. The effects are negated, if I recall correctly. And obviously when this card leaves the field, the other monster dies as well. So yeah, it's a good card, but I think we can kind of live with this card again if Instant Fusion gets banned. Will this necessarily happen? I don't think so. There's no reason necessarily right now to unban Norden, but it would be nice to do that. So yeah, it's one of the other configurations. So same thing with the Snake Eye, Oak, and Ash. It's one or the other. Heavy Storm, I honestly think it will get limited just looking at OCG patterns. This card is at 1 and now in the OCG, so they have Duster, Lightning Storm, they have Duster and Heavy Storm, as well as 2 Lightning Storm. So yeah, they have 4 back removal, which is particularly good in Tenpai Dragon, but for some odd magical reason, they're not playing Heavy Storm in the main deck. So it kind of defeats the purpose of having the card at 1 if you're not going to play it. Yeah, they do see it as a strictly worse Duster, which is true. Because the only way to really benefit off of Heavy Storm more than you would benefit off of Duster is if you play Unchained and you only draw like 2 or more traps with like no monsters. Otherwise, it again ends up being the same because your monsters destroy your traps, so it's not like you make your hand better, and you're not going +1 either. You're really just replacing a card with another. And with Sharvara being to 1, I really don't care. So yeah, Heavy Storm can go back to 1. Maybe limit Lightning Storm so that we have the same amount of back removal. That could make sense. Honestly, I don't really care. This is a prediction, not a wish list, because personally, I don't really want necessarily more back removal. But again, following OCG patterns, this card could go to 1. Time Seal, this card sucks. It can definitely come back to 3, but it's at 1 right now and it doesn't do anything, and it never will do anything. The card is a trap card that says skip your opponent's next draw phase. Why would you care about that? Like, it's a turn 4 kind of card. It sucks. Cobb at the Grave, it either stays where it is or it gets banned. Personally, I think it can get banned. Honestly, I don't think this card's really healthy for the game. My point is, Cobb at the Grave will always stay in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because a lot of hand traps just are unaffected by this card, like Imperm and Nibiru. So there's like an inherent drawback to playing Cobb at the Grave. So if the card was a 3, my question is to you, would you play it? Would you play 3 Cobb at the Grave in every single one of your decks? It's not like back in the days, because Cobb at the Grave, I do remember when Nibiru was not around, this card was a little too good. I mean, at least when people don't play the card. But when everybody's playing Nibiru and Imperm, and you draw Cobb at the Grave, you feel a little stupid. So, I think it can stay to 1. It's not the end of the world. But yeah, Summon Limit, I think unfortunately this card will only go to 1. I want it to get banned, personally. I think every single Floodgate should go to 0. But again, following the pattern of Rivalry, there can only be 1, and goes in match, this is most likely what will end up happening. Anti-Spell for Ignorance, pretty much the same logic, so might as well do it right now. On the other hand, sorry, I almost died there. These 2 cards, obviously, they have to go to 1 or 0. They can't stay at 3 because they're a degenerate for the game. But yeah, on the other hand, normal trap cards like lingering cards like Different Dimension Ground and D-Barrier, I genuinely don't think will go to 1 because you can thrust into them. But if you limit them, then you can no longer trap trick into them, but then you can still trap track into them. Not that it matters because nobody plays any of these cards. But thrust is a solid argument for you to want to ban these cards, but I don't think they're ever going to ban DDG and D-Barrier. So because of that, I think these cards, Konami will cut them some slack and will keep them at 3. Even though, again, I don't like these cards. Anything that lingers or that shuts down a mechanic if you don't draw the out. I'll be on the Sanctifier Dragon and Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. These two, they come as a pair, right? They're very similar. I mean, not really, but I mean, one or the other has to take the fall, not necessarily both. We don't need any unnecessary redundancy in the ban list. So that's the reason why this discussion is really important, because if you just look at the positions, some things make no sense. But I'll be on the Sanctifier Dragon, I think, has a higher likelihood of taking the fall than Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. And the reason why I say that is because Sanctifier can summon more things that are very dangerous, like Ra's Disciple, Aido the Magical Warrior, and Xiaogin the Spiritualist. This is what the Voices voice deck is doing at the moment when it goes first post game 1. If you're main decking Xiaogin, you're a crazy dude, you're a madman. But this is definitely a post game 1 thing. It's really terrifying. So not only Despia can do it, technically a lot of decks can do it. Even like Eldritch and random BS that can just splash Branded Fusion can easily do that. It's a 1-card combo, and it's not healthy for the game whatsoever. Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, I mean, you can't really use the argument of, oh yeah, but it's collateral damage for Gimmick Puppet and they're getting new support next set. It's irrelevant because this card has never been played in Gimmick Puppet and never will be. again, I know the deck very, very, very well. By the way, I haven't forgotten you guys with the spreadsheet. I'm still working on it. I'll try to upload it either like tomorrow or Wednesday. I'm not sure yet. But yeah, no, Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, irrelevant in its own deck, honestly. Next up, we've got Beatrice. This card should cease to exist. I despise Beatrice with the bottom of my heart. You can send a Transaction Rollback in the My Akashi Trap or Eradicator Virus and just FTK your opponent with 2 level 6 monsters. But the real reason why I want this card to get banned right now is because we're going to be getting the Fiendsmith splashable engine very soon. And it's pretty much like one card Beatrice, like left and right. It's not good for the game. It's really not. So if we can just get rid of this card right now, it'd be nice. But in the next set, Legacy of Destruction, we're getting Lightsworn support. So Curious could definitely get unbanned. I don't know if they're necessarily going to make it go from 0 to 3 because this card is a 1-of anyways. So they might as well. It's literally just played as a 1-of. But yeah, no, Curious is honestly fine for the game because they banned Agido and Kelbeck. Curious was unfair because of Agido, Kelbeck, and Fairy Tail Snow. You could either mail 8 cards or Foolish, a card that just kind of is insta-win on the spot, honestly. But you can easily argue, very easily argue, that Beatrice is better than Curious anyways, and Curious is fair support for Lightsworn, so I'm all for it. I mean, it's also a Lightsworn monster, so there is inherent synergy because it counts for Minerva, the Synchro Monster, Judgment Dragon, Punishment Dragon, etc. Its name is relevant, and it also has like a bonus effect that the other decks that are just splashing this card would not have, which is nice. Now, Hieratic Seal, I want this card to get banned, but realistically, it'll probably stay where it is. Reasoning and Monster Gate, I actually think these cards will both go to 2, so a little jump because they were at 1 before. Infernoid is getting more support in the Terminal Revenge, and these cards could work in that deck. And honestly, they're at 1, but they're really irrelevant. Like, nobody even wants to play these cards, so it doesn't really matter too much. Magispector Unicorn Kirin, we got Magispector support in Phantom Nightmare, and nobody's playing the deck. And honestly, Kirin is not unfair. I mean, it's a very good card, don't get me wrong, but it's not like completely insane the reason why Magispector is broken. It's not like Electrum. Electrum is actually unfair. That card is cracked. Kirin, nah, we can live with one Kirin, honestly. It's better in like generic Pendulums than it is in Magispector, ironically, because this card cannot be Pendulum summoned in Magispector. The Magispectors are scale 3 and 5. This is level 6. Konami knows exactly what they're doing. Actually, so true. Mathmech Circular to 3. Just kidding. It's not gonna happen. There's no new product that really warrants like Cyber's decks to be pushed. If there was like new Mathmech cards announced or like just new good Cyber's cards in general, I'd probably say, maybe we can experiment back to 1. But they're not gonna do that because this is like new on the ban list anyways. So they have no reason to like backpedal and be like, oh, okay, you know what? Yeah, my bad. We're only gonna do it for 1 format and then you can get it back. I don't think so. This is another one of those decks that can play with like 1 card. It can OTK very easily. It can play a lot of hand traps. It can play through hand traps. And I say that because I'm a Mathmech player myself, so I do have credibility. Circular, I can understand why Konami banned this card. They just don't want it to be like the default option. And again, it did take 2 spots at the top 8 in Worlds. So it just proves that in any unestablished format, it's a very good deck. And when it's like just a generic format, like a lot of diversity running around, Mathmech is always going to be one of the top decks because of, again, its ability to play multiple hand traps. Okay, now we're getting to probably the spiciest card in this ban list, which is Linkuriboh. I've heard billions of arguments to ban Linkuriboh, and I am not necessarily against them. I do believe this is the most playable Kuriboh monster in the history of the game by a very significant margin. This card's really insane. Everything about this card is good. It's a Link 1, so you get a monster in the grave. That's already a good thing. It's not like El Mirage, which is only for normal summons, so you can special summon a monster and then still turn it into a Link 1. It's really nice, and also the graveyard effect, a dodge negation. That is insane. You're also doing it as a cost. You can decrease the attack of an opponent's monster like to 0 when he attacks, so it protects like your IP Masquerade and stuff like that, or your Appaloosa. Everything about Linkuriboh is good. I can 100% see it getting banned. But realistically, I think every Kuriboh monster is kind of like a mascot for the game. So it might just dodge the ban list just because of anime appeal in a way, kind of. I don't know. It would be interesting to see a Kuriboh monster finally getting banned. I don't think we've ever seen that. I think the last time we saw like a very good Kuriboh monster was Rainbow Kuriboh during like the Xyz era, but I could be wrong. Anyways, Crossout Designator is the next one. Very similar situation as Call by the Grave, but I think Crossout is a little more hit or miss because it's only truly broken in either tier 0 formats where like you hit the engine cards on top of the hand traps, or when your deck only has like one real weakness like Despia, you lose to Ash on Branded Fusion. But apart from that, Crossout is usually just a very bad card. So wanting to ban Crossout I think is a little overkill. And put it in the limited section would make it so that we would have less copies overall of Call by the Grave and Crossout than in the OCG. So we can take like the opposite route as the OCG. They have 2 Call by, 1 Crossout. We can do 2 Crossout, 1 Call by. I think that's a very good compromise. Next up is Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood. Unfortunately, I think this card will dodge the ban list, even though I actually think it's extremely unhealthy for the game because it allows people to just abuse time at their advantage. Not in a good way, so in like actual competitive tournaments, Ghost Sister never really does anything positive. I don't think Konami necessarily acknowledges this problem, so they might just keep Ghost Sister intact. But if you've seen like some side decks at the UDS, some people are citing like 6 time cards. It's completely ridiculous. When like, hold on a second, 40% of your side deck is time cards, you know there's a problem in Yu-Gi-Oh! Somewhere, but at this point you might as well just say fix the rules, not fix the card pool. So maybe the problem was not Ghost Sister, and maybe the problem was time in general. So I can give you that. Next up is Engage. This card I think is going back to 3 because we're getting a huge wave of Sky Striker support very, very soon. And not gonna lie, this engine has been doing nothing. Like we kept saying, oh yeah, it's a super good engine. It's doing so, like it's actually really good in like pure Snake Eyes. You can do nice things. Like one single Hornet is like either a Hita or a Dark going second. That can do some crazy things without using up your normal summon. That's true, but nobody's playing those cards because everybody's playing hand shops. Nobody's trying to play board breakers. Board breakers just aren't good enough. Like their impact is also just it's worse than hand shops because when you got board breakers, your opponent's like end board is so resilient that like you need multiple board breakers as well. Just like usually you need multiple hand shops, but if you're playing like 15 hand shops, you already know you're drawing 2 hand shops very often. Whereas with board breakers, like you run out of good board breakers to play. Like you got Talons, Super Poly, that's pretty much it almost. Like Thrust plays into Droll and Logbird, so it's kind of like bad. Dark Ruler, not good to main deck because if you draw it going first, it sucks. Forbidden Droplet, it's too expensive, you need to send too many cards. So I'm not a big fan of board breakers, hand shops are the best. And Sky Striker Engine in any deck, honestly, is like the same thing as board breakers. They're fair cards, so we can unban, unlimit Engage completely. And it would be all good in the hood. IP Masquerena, same boat as Appaloosa. If they want to keep Appaloosa intact, they will probably do the same thing with IP Masquerena. But if it was up to me, I would actually ban Masquerena. I think it's a really bad card for the game. World Sea Dragon Zealantis. This card was never, like historically speaking, this card never really did much of anything. So I can't really see it like randomly getting banned only because it's the first time it's seeing a lot of play. So I think it'll dodge the ban list because it's either going to 0 or staying at 3. It can't go to 1, obviously, because people are only playing 1. I don't think this card is, like, that bad, especially if you hit, like, Snake Eyes to a certain extent. And Infernity Launcher, the reason why this card is in my list is because last ban list, we got Infernity Archfiend back to 3, I think, if I recall correctly. I'm pretty sure. And Launcher, I can see it going back to 3. I see that this card... It's good, but Infernity is so late behind that it really doesn't matter. Next up, we've got Ultimate Offering. This card completely sucks. It's currently banned. I don't think it's... I mean, it should get unbanned because it sucks, but I mean, I don't care. I don't really feel strongly about it. Pankratops, last ban list, what they did is that they gave us 1 Pankratops, and nobody's really citing Pankratops, so we can just argue at this point. The card has been naturally power crept. Like, some people are still playing Fenrir and are debating whether it's better than Pankratops. He's even going second. Like, you're not even main decking the card. You're citing Fenrir just for going second, and sometimes it has a better impact than Pankratops because he can search itself. So, Pankratops is a good card, but there's just so many good cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! That you can argue that it's fine now. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it can go back to 3, or it's gonna stay at 2, but... it's not gonna go back to 1 or 0. No chance. No chance. Now, next up is Prosperity. I do believe this card has to go to 1 now. This card in Tenpai Dragon, it's ridiculous. It's a going second OTK deck that can kill you under Prosperity. It has the damage, by the way. So the fact that they can inflict more than 16,000 damage is very problematic with one single card. They could like they could stack the prosperities and still kill you. They could do like 25% damage. You're still dead. So yeah, no, I don't want this card to exist because it gives extra consistency to absolutely everyone without having to work for it. It's about time that people have to experiment with other pod cards because this card just power crept everyone, like extravagance, everything. So like this is going to be good collateral damage for a bunch of decks. Like Flunderies, Kashtira, Voices Voice even though like you don't necessarily need to play like 3 Prosperity in that deck. Tearlament's Kid Kalos, it could go back to 1, but I don't think it'll happen. To be fair, if we ban Beatrice, then it might, but there's no new product for Tearlament, so no reason to push it. If anything, it would actually work against Konami's like intentions of pushing the new product, so it would be stupid to unban Kid Kalos at the moment, even though it might happen eventually because the deck is nerfed to death, and in its current state, especially if we ban Beatrice, this deck is dog shit, like actual crap. Anyways, now we've got Wind Up Carriers and Mighty. It could go back to 1 or 3. I don't care. This card sucks. It's one of the worst cards in the ban list, like by a long shot. But there is no new product for Wind Up, so there is no reason to unban it, unfortunately. Shifter, I hate this card from the bottom of my heart, but unfortunately, it's sad to say, I think it'll just go to 2. I think we might follow the same trend as the OCG. This card is one of the biggest cancer cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it allows very bad players to never have to improve at the game because they're like one single card just carries them. Same argument for Featherstorm. I want to limit or ban the card, but I don't think it'll happen because they're just gonna see the results like Konami and they're gonna be like, okay, Flunderies isn't topping like that much. Practically speaking, what's happening is that some experiences, some careers are being terminated completely because of these 2 cards. Like, they're on the same bullshit level as Summon Limit Anti-Spell, but D-Shifter you can draw it going first and second, so it's really fast. It's much faster than these cards, whereas Featherstorm, obviously, you gotta go first. Unless you're playing Harpy, and then you're normal summoning a Harpy monster, and then you're going Featherstorm, but that's actually a fair application for it. So, yeah, as long as Featherstorm maybe goes to 1, or not even, because then they can just thrust into it, like you want to Ash me. To be fair, that's at least a little more reasonable. But yeah, Shifter from 2, either to 2 or 1, I'd be fine with that. If it gets banned, then obviously I'm just gonna cry, honestly. I'm gonna be the happiest human on earth. I hate this card so much, it makes no sense. Runic Fountain, I think it should go to 1, but I don't think it'll happen. It probably will stay to 2. But either way, I think this card should eventually get a little bit of a nerf because the Runic engine is that kind of engine that obviously thanks to Joshua Schmidt will always see representation. But even outside of that, it's always going to be like the default splashable engine in any deck when there is any deck that can play it. When there is a new deck that can play it, in a generic format. It's just a really good engine. You draw a card, you have access to outs to anything. It's a really good package. And finally, we got some more Bird of Sovereignty. This card sucks without the Windbearer statue, so yeah, we can easily unban it. I mean, 1 or 3, doesn't matter. It's played as a 1 of. I absolutely could not care less. But yeah, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And let me know your thoughts about all of these placements in the comment section below. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. Peace.